Welcome to Phil Phails. My name is Philip Jones, and today my guest is Jamie Figari. She is a LCSW and holistic psychotherapist. Where were you born?
Where was I born?
Speaking of nervous energy, yeah. Where were you born?
I was born in Michigan,
Ooh.
specifically Saginaw General Hospital.
That's like the hand.
Yeah, that's the hand.
People are like, I'm from Michigan,
Yep.
and then they say,
Right here.
You're right here.
Right here. See that? Right here.
That's where she's
Right
from.
on the border of Indiana
Okay.
and Michigan. Little tiny town. If you were to drive all the way from Detroit and Chicago, it's like pretty much dead center on the way.
Between Detroit and Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So those were your big cities that were closest?
So I grew up in a town of 2,000 people. So
small town.
Yeah, super small. And so the nearest town next door is, I don't even know what that was. We were in between two slightly bigger towns, but not much. But the largest town was probably a couple 100,000 people. It's Kalamazoo.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. I think that's where Derek Jeter was from, I think.
Okay.
So
shout out Derek Jeter.
Yeah. But then, I would say the next big city beyond that would be Grand Rapids if you're on the west side,
okay.
or Detroit on the east side.
What kind of family did you get born into? Were there other siblings already there?
Yeah, it was a very blended family.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
what number were you?
I was second to last, so there's 5 of us.
Ooh,
yeah, 5 of us total. Mm-hmm.
And you weren't the baby.
I wasn't the baby.
But your parents were probably done being parents by then, huh? I mean,
so my family is kind of complicated.
Okay.
So I can give you how it breaks down. It's a little bit complicated. So my mom had my brother, my second oldest brother, when she was 18,
mm-hmm.
and his father wasn't in the picture. My mom then had her first husband,
mm-hmm.
and at the time, he had a wife previously, and so they were married and they had a child together. And my mom married her first husband. She adopted my oldest brother,
mm-hmm.
and so they were divorced. When she was married to her first husband, they had my sister.
Okay.
So
now it's 3 kids.
3, yeah. And then when she divorced her first husband, she had 3 kids at this point.
Uh-huh.
My 2 older brothers, and then my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And then she married my dad, and they had my brother and I.
Yeah.
My younger brother. So
interesting.
Yeah. So it was a blended family.
Yeah, it is a blended family. Was everybody at the house a bunch, or were people going to different parents and different places, different households?
So what I would say is, there was about 4 to 5 years between each of us siblings.
Okay.
So when my oldest brother was in the house, he was much older. So my early memories were him almost going off to college, so I remember that. And then my second oldest brother, shortly after, I definitely remember going to his high school. He was in a bunch of sports. I remember to go in all of his high school activities and stuff as a kid. And then my sister, she was my big sister. We did a lot of stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
My brother and I, so we were all around. I remember, I think the biggest memories that I have were always our family Christmas was huge. We had a lot of togetherness in that space of, but certainly my other siblings had, they had their dad and stepdad that they would visit. So people were kind of going off into different homes and stuff. But
what was it like being in a house like that as a kiddo?
I remember it was fun. It was never you were never really alone. There was always people around. It was a very busy household. My dad, so I grew up having in the summers, just living in a bathing suit. We had a pool, playing with my siblings, going to a lot of sporting events, doing a lot of sports as a kid. It was nice,
mm-hmm. Small town.
Yeah, it was a very small town.
Everybody knew everybody?
Definitely that type of situation. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and if y'all rolling 5 deep with kids, you probably you're like a crew.
Yeah, no, we definitely like you're a family of 7, so
Everybody like knew,
yeah.
oh, you were so and so's
We had a
sister.
van.
You were
We definitely had we had a
you get a
van.
van.
Yeah, we had a van, and I remember loving that van because it was just fun. You could like pull out the seat, we could all hang out in the back, and I think we had a TV, which was like a big deal. So we'd go on road trips and stuff and
Yeah.
travel. Yeah, it was
I
fun.
imagine that would feel really safe having your own like kind of family gang.
Yeah, I think it did definitely.
Yeah. So you,
I think the other thing that I'll say is that my 2 older brothers, I wasn't able to really. I don't think I really formed as close of relationships with them until I was older.
yeah.
So
Well, because y'all were so
yeah,
different in age.
there's such an age gap. So
Yeah. It's like, how do you
that's
relate as a 18-year-old to a 5-year-old?
yeah. So I mean, I definitely remember I have memories of it, but not as many memories. I definitely remember being young when my oldest brother went off to college and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those are early memories, and then having much more established memories of with my sister and my younger brother, because we were much closer in age at that point. Like my 2 older brothers were going off to college and stuff as I grew up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How did your folks navigate the complexities of a blended family?
What I'll say is it was we didn't really distinguish. I mean, I never felt it, and I would say that this is where my personal experience of growing up like that was they were just my siblings. I didn't think of them in any other way. I mean, I knew
Yeah.
that my sister had a biological dad, and I knew that they had biological parents that I didn't know. What I would say too is that because it was such a small town, our families knew each other. The families all
Oh,
knew
so their
each other.
dads
Yeah.
lived in that town.
Yeah, well, the neighboring town. So
Okay.
everyone kind of knew each other, and so there was that sense of I don't know, I don't remember there being friction or anything. It was just they would go and they would have their weekends, and it was certainly my experience with it was it was supportive. It was supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, certainly it had its challenges and stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes I think of therapists or people that go into a healing practice as someone that starts with a desire to heal themselves. Is that true for you?
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely. And I think a lot of that came up when I became a parent myself.
Mm-hmm.
And we did, I think you go through that process where you start to maybe re-experience things from your childhood, or start to maybe identify certain behaviors that oh, okay, this is my mom, or I'm showing you I remember this, and that. I don't know if there were certain things that I was that was how I grew up, but I would like it to look different with my kids.
Is there a wound from those attachments that you feel comfortable talking about that led to some of that stuff?
So I mean,
maybe not a wound, but a dynamic that.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say is I was really close with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Still am. My dad is still alive. My mom passed away when I was 30. I was 35 when she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So colon cancer. And my relationship with my mom growing up was really challenging. We always had this dynamic where we would kind of be battling each other. And I remember very specifically, she'd always be like, you always have to have the last word. I always had to push back.
You did.
So yeah, I definitely pushed back. I was definitely the more emotional child. I think anybody in my family would say I was really sensitive, and probably, maybe, I don't know, I wasn't the middle child, but I was maybe closer to that middle child where I probably absorbed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I was more emotional in maybe a family dynamic where emotion wasn't really expressed.
They didn't express emotion.
It wasn't as encouraged. Your expression of emotion was, I mean, we didn't talk a lot about emotions.
You didn't.
Yeah.
Well, that was just the time. I don't think people talked about emotions back then.
Talk about it in that way of I don't think about it. I think about the generation in which my parents grew up. And I relate a lot in my clinical practice to Midwestern culture is very much like that. It's kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
Stoic,
and it's
maybe.
very kind of stoic. Yeah. So So, I mean, I think, yeah, I was more emotional, and so I had a dynamic with my mom where I would kind of push boundaries and I would act out a little bit, especially as I got older. When my parents got divorced, and I think I was like 14.
Okay.
Yeah. And
How
so,
did your mom handle that
well,
boundary pushing?
I mean,
Would she de-escalate or escalate?
I mean, oh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Could you co-regulate with her when you were feeling
No,
intense emotions?
definitely. And I would say that that's probably like where most of and I think I did have that ability with my dad. Like we spent a lot of time together. We did a lot of things, and we genuinely we just had a lot in common. I mean, I think he kind of treated me like a firstborn son, maybe in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. Like I grew up just kind of doing all the things. It wasn't gender specific, right? I would just do all the things that he was interested in, and I would
What would
just
you
go,
do? Oh yeah, you were saying the
yeah, like I
photography
just
and all the different things.
yeah, just all these things and I just kind of go along for the ride. But I spent a lot of time with my dad. I think we've always kind of had the ability to just sort of like get each other. We just enjoyed being around each other and had a lot in common. I was always like adventurous with him. But my relationship with my mom, she worked hard. She had a really difficult childhood growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of maybe stress and anxiety that I think she carried with her throughout her life. And I think when I think about how like your nervous system is regulated in childhood, I grew up in a house where there probably was a lot of there's just a lot going on. There's a lot happening, and we all had our individual experiences, but definitely I kind of experienced my mom's maybe more anxious energy.
I was thinking of a car
Yeah.
that kind of idles high.
Yeah,
Has
she
a
definitely
high
ran.
idle.
And anybody that knew my mom kind of identified her in that way, as she just like burned it at both ends of the night.
Mm.
So and that for her looked like working. She kind of
What
threw
kind of job
herself.
she do?
So my dad owned a business. My family, my grandfather had a manufacturing business.
Manufacturing?
And he manufactured trailer hitches.
Okay.
And so I have just very early memories of my grandpa. He died when I was 5, but when he passed away, my dad and my uncle inherited the family business. And
Trailer
so,
hitch business?
Yeah. So, I lost my train of thought.
Did your mom work at the business too?
So at some point, where I was going with that. So at some point, when my mom and dad were married, my dad and my mom were like, she was vice president, my dad was president. So
Okay.
there was a lot of memories too of like going to, we called it the shop, and we would just play office. My mom would be working, my sister and I'd be playing secretary on the phone. We had so much fun, Like I definitely have memories of doing that, spending a lot of time like with my parents while they were working.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fun for me. And then as I got older, that was my first job, or I'd like help out with whatever administrative stuff. And I think it's like all of us worked at some point with my dad's family business. And yeah, so my mom was very invested at one point, and she had a pretty pivotal role. I think she was, but then, when my father and her divorced, yeah, it looked different. I'm trying to think. She did a bunch of different stuff, but she went on and worked for the local paper.
She couldn't work there anymore when they got divorced, huh? That'd be difficult.
I mean, it would be difficult, but I never like my experience with my parents' divorce was, I'm sure, for a while. Like I definitely remember it being contentious for a few years, and them having stress and maybe not getting along. My dad I remember him picking me up at the curb when it was tight. Like there was a few years where it was like a little bit rough, but they always parented together in terms of like they respected each other's parenting styles.
Yeah.
And they always kind of worked together, even in their own difficulty.
Yeah.
Or maybe their own feelings towards one another. I never remember them really misaligning in that way.
Yeah.
So that was helpful. And they also lived really close together. And there was my dad at one point when my parents got divorced, my father at some point we started to become more successful. The business began to grow and he became more successful, and we were
Trailer
able to
hitches were a
yeah.
hit.
Yeah. So the business grew. And at one point we had a lake house, which was very close to the house I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
And so when my parents got divorced, and these were only like 5 miles apart, when my parents got divorced, my dad just took the lake house and my mom stayed at the house in town.
House.
And
Yeah.
this is only 5 miles apart.
Right.
So I just bounced back and forth pretty equally between the two of them. They had 50-50. I would stay, like, I guess technically it was like week on, week off, but
Yeah.
I could just kind of, as I got older, just kind of bounce back and forth from one house to the other.
Did you tend to stay more with your dad because you had a better connection with him?
I don't know if it was that or if it was because I could
He let you get away with more stuff?
I wouldn't say he would let me, but I probably did.
You just did.
You know? Because my mom was on to everything. And that was probably why I ballowed, because in a small town, like, she was friends with the other moms and they would all talk. So, I mean,
she was getting in trouble in that small town?
I definitely, yeah. When my parents got divorced, and I'll tell, I say this to my kids, is there was a point where, like, I started to hang out with the
wrong
peers that
crowd?
were making
Bad choices.
Yeah, bad choices. And I definitely fell into that as a kid.
I did too.
Yeah. So there was
ADHD.
that.
ADHD, I think that impulsivity, that, like, probably longing to belong.
Oh, yeah.
Wanting to belong, wanting to.
And I don't know. It was like, in my mind at the time, I didn't think I was doing anything that anybody else wasn't doing.
Right.
But I would get caught.
I got caught too.
I would get caught.
I'd get caught
and it
too,
was like,
because I was so loud, I guess, or just I wasn't good at being sneaky.
Well, I would say too that my mom, she knew what was up, and I wasn't a kid that tended to lie. Like, it was hard. I wasn't a good liar.
So when you'd lie, it'd be very obvious.
Yeah, or like, it just, for whatever reason, the plan would fall through. So there was a couple experiences, where I got in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid to talk about that either. It's kind of, for me, it
legal
was like,
trouble, or
yeah, like, I got busted for drinking.
Okay.
At a young age.
I got busted
I was
for
like
drinking.
15. I got an MIP, minor in possession.
We pull hey misters. Did you do hey misters up there?
I don't know what that is.
Hey mister, will you buy me a 6-pack of beer?
Oh.
Here's $20. You can keep the extra.
I mean, I think for us it was just, it was a combination of things. Sometimes there were parents that would allow it.
Oh, your parents would buy the beer.
Not mine.
Yeah,
definitely
some parents.
Not mine. But I was hanging out with kids whose parents were maybe more open to that. They were more so they were more open to that. And then, and I had definitely it wasn't really like my older siblings or anything, but
definitely not them.
My friends' siblings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
when my brother turned 21, I turned 21, right? Because I got his extra driver's license.
Yeah. So
yeah.
So what I would say is, you
got in some trouble. You had fun.
But it was one of those experiences too, where it was I got busted a second time. I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was 17. It was my senior year of high school. And my dad told me very specifically, you get in trouble again, I'm not paying for college.
Whoa.
And that was like.
With another, it was an MIP, another minor in possession?
It was at that point, like, I had gone through, like, getting my license taken away.
Oh, wow.
And having my license suspended.
Yeah.
So it was like a big deal.
It's like, we're not putting up with this anymore.
One of the best things that I would say that they did for me is they did not bail me out. They were not going to help me out.
They didn't?
Like, no. There was no, it was like, you're going to do the community service. You're going to go to the AA classes. I remember being like 15, going to AA for the first time with, being with a lot of adults, and it's scaring the hell out of me.
You went to AA at 15?
I want to say it was, when you get in trouble at that age, it was part of the process. And they made me do it, and it was a good thing, because
good for you.
I think it was good for me because it held me accountable. I mean, I had to grow up fast, but I was accountable to my
you're in the room with a bunch of cigarette smoking, like, real adult addicts.
It was people that had destroyed their lives. So it was definitely like eye-opening.
So that would be sobering for you.
Yeah. But did it keep me from not making the same mistake again?
No, it didn't. No.
And then go off to college, and I was still pushing boundaries and stuff. So.
Did you identify as a good kid or a bad kid?
That's such a good question. If
you were to make good grades, were you in, like, cheerleader?
So what I'll say is when I got in trouble for my first MIP, my first minor in possession, I got kicked out of honor society, and that was super disappointing to my family. Like my parents, like they weren't super. I mean, there was an expectation. My dad always really valued education, and I generally got good grades, but I
Yeah.
wasn't like a 4-point student necessarily, and definitely but I was a good student. And I definitely like excelled up until I would say like 7th grade. And it aligns right at the time, like between my parents getting a divorce. And then I don't know. So you think about it and it's just like, was I just going through something emotionally that was causing me to kind of act out in these
Or if
ways?
you were going through something socially.
Yeah, social. Well, I think it was all of the above,
Yeah.
right? I definitely don't blame my parents for it. I think it's just part of the experience of trying to work out your emotions through an already difficult adolescent time.
Yeah. Not knowing how to move through that
Yeah.
and doing the best you can in a place at a time where probably both your parents were taxed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
going through a divorce. I'm a divorced
Yeah.
person, and it is an extremely taxing time emotionally,
Yeah.
cognitively, and that takes away from the energy and the attention that you can give to your kids.
Oh, for sure.
So there's a for lack of a better word, there's a deficit there
Mhm.
of attention and like quality
Yeah.
interactions.
Yeah.
And that's going to leave a void and a lot of confusion in a child.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it was, I mean, I don't know. I mean, over time, what I'll say is that I did feel this respect of my parents. They always respected each other even if they didn't get along, and they had such different personalities. I always looked at them and thought like, how on earth did you two come together?
They
Because
were opposites.
they were so opposite. But they did, they did. I think that they really were aligned in terms of the values of family and what was important, and that I think helped them maintain that sense of respect even when they weren't together. So, they showed up at everything together. There were lots of things that we did together. It was like there was never like this separation between, if there was any family gathering or anything, like they did it.
They did it together.
They were at those events together, and it wasn't problematic. I never felt that tension. Maybe early on, but later definitely not. I mean, my dad was with us at the hospital when my mom was sick and all that. So, yeah.
Were you interested in psychology and therapy and stuff like that when you're in college? Or when did that start?
I mean, I think I always had a fascination with it. Definitely always was interested in self-development, self-improvement. I think when I took my first psychology class in college, that's probably when I found, okay, this is super interesting, when you can start to understand the theoretical perspectives of why people behave the way that they do. Then I definitely became really interested. But the path that I actually chose, I ended up becoming an advertising major in college. And I thought when I went to college, I thought I was going to be, I wanted to be a journalist. I thought I was going to, I wanted to be on TV. I wanted to be a reporter. Which is so interesting. I don't know that I necessarily wanted to be on camera, but I wanted to be a reporter in some capacity.
Yeah.
But then I got to college and I was like, I hate being under this pressure of deadline. I remember being in class and them giving us an assignment and just it was so difficult. I think about the ability to think on your feet or have that witty humor. You have to have that as a reporter. You have to be able to really think quick. And one thing that I know about myself is that I process much more slowly. So that was not something that I was going to be successful at. Maybe I could have learned to adapt and learned maybe a different mechanism, but
you got the message that it wasn't something you could do with your processor speed.
Yeah, I think it was a processing speed issue because I was a really strong writer and I could definitely deliver ideas. But really, I pursued an advertising degree because I wanted to go into PR, public relations.
Yeah.
And that was an emerging career at the time.
Which seems very similar to psychology, marketing. It's like, how do people think? What motivates people?
Absolutely. That's why for me, this is my second career because my first career was in public relations prior to having kids, and I loved it. But there's so much psychology that goes into it. You're thinking about behaviors, you're thinking about why are people interested in what's motivating someone towards that, all of that. So to me, when I started to think about what I wanted, it was actually my therapist. So I had the idea in my mind of maybe becoming a therapist or wanting to do that. And I was kind of embarrassed.
You were
I
embarrassed
was like a little bit embarrassed to say that to my therapist.
that you want to be a therapist?
Yeah, I just felt like that she might experience that as being awkward. Like I wanted to be like her or something because she was helping me so much. I had that feeling of like I can't tell her that I want to do that.
Okay.
But it was actually my first therapist she was my second therapist, but she was with me through the process of my divorce. Amazing therapist, and she was like, "No, you could be an excellent therapist. I believe that." And it was that validation of her seeing me in that way that was like, "No, you could, I really think that you could be good at this." And then I started to see a pathway like seemed impossible. You know, going through a divorce thinking, well, I actually started my graduate studies the semester before I found out I was getting a divorce. So I was already like,
you were moving that direction.
Yeah, there was turmoil and stuff, and it maybe was going in that direction. But my kids were getting older. And I think something that I struggled in an early motherhood was the sense of I was a worker. I really loved to work. I loved the feeling that I got from being able to, a lot of, I think my sense of self-identity was tied to having a career that I loved. And that was really difficult when I became a mom, is like, okay, how do I balance this conflict, this inner conflict between motherhood, seemingly feeling like this feeling and guilt that I had, the shame of like, is this enough? I still love this other thing too. And I will say that like that was a real struggle for me.
Career and kids.
Yeah.
Can I love both of
them?
them?
I live both of them without like neglecting like these two children. And I think I always struggled with that because, well, for one, I don't think it was modeled. The opposite was modeled.
You did what your mom did.
You know, so I definitely, but it felt like more out of a necessity versus something. I really loved the career that I was pursuing at the time. You know, I found a lot of, I loved doing PR.
Public relations.
Yeah, I loved public relations, and it kind of took me down some interesting pathways.
But at a certain point you thought, you know, therapy or helping people heal might be more in alignment with.
I mean, I was home. So my path of how I moved into therapy also, it's like I moved from a career where I was living in Detroit as my first career out of college. I was working at Ford Motor Company in public affairs. And then that took me to Chicago. I relocated as a contract employee and worked in media relations had a great job, but then the auto industry was really struggling and I was a contract employee. So because I had established some relationships with the people in the media and they were our clients, they encouraged me to come on as an auto editor. So it was interesting because I actually did go back into journalism. I ended up working for Consumer Guide, which is an auto editor because they wanted to build their female presence. So I was here like working with all these gearheads, learning about cars and how to write about it. It was a great job.
Yeah.
I got to drive like 2 new cars every week, top of the line, like everything
That sounds fun.
It was so fun. And
then you're writing about the cars that you're driving?
Writing against the car. And the thing about Consumer Guide is it was really highly regarded because they didn't accept any advertising. So there was a sense of like, so that, but at the time I was dating my kid's father. And he actually helped me get that job. He was like, loves cars to this day. So he helped me write about it and get the job. But he was in Miami. And so, and I was in Chicago. And we hit a crossroads where it was like, okay, this relationship is going one way or the other.
Long distance relationship.
Yeah, it was long distance. And then I relocated. It was very fast. I mean, we dated, it was really quick, really hot and heavy. And then I relocated to Miami. You know, so we got engaged and then I relocated to Miami. And in Miami, that was when my PR career kind of got derailed because I was not fully bilingual, you know, and if you're doing PR in a city like Miami.
The public is bilingual. They speak Spanish.
It's a first language. nearly the first language. I mean, it was at the time, I think it was like 86% Latin.
So you needed to speak Spanish in order to relate to that public.
Oh yeah, to be able to, was conversational in
Yeah.
Spanish, but to be able to have the confidence to do that in business, there was just no way.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I ended up going into nonprofit, and that definitely was not the best fit for me, but that was what was available to me in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really got back on track. And then we ended up moving to Austin, 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved out of Miami at the height of the market right before the crash. And we thought we were just going to we could not buy anything. It was just insane. I don't know if you've ever seen The Big Short.
I have.
Yeah. So it was just like
Yeah.
that. Like, so we just thought, okay, well, Texas looks interesting and the economy seems like it's pretty stable. We'll just maybe like invest over here and see how things calm down.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up finding a place pre-construction. We built a house, but we kind of thought we weren't really we were kind of torn still on whether or not we were going to leave Miami. We just wanted to see how things shook out for a while. But then I ended up moving. We ended up just moving to Austin. We ended up just making the jump.
Making the move.
Mm-hmm. And that was a good decision at the time because the market took a long time for that market to recover. As you know, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you're coming to Austin. At this point, do you have kiddos?
2007, no kids.
Yeah. You and your
Got
husband.
pregnant right away, like
Yeah.
within the first year. Yeah. So at that point, like I think that was really where I started to lose my sense of career, like what I was going to do. Because at that time, then I was like stepping into this role of being a
motherhood.
mom.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It was really interesting.
How did you guys grow apart? Like, what happened there?
In the marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
You might not want to talk about it, and that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's an area I'm probably a little bit more sensitive to.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, what I will say, okay, here's what I'll say. And I think this kind of ties back into what we talked about earlier is that really what I realized, and my kids have asked this, so I think I'm perfectly fine sharing it, is that they look at their dad and they look at me and they're like, you guys are so different. And at the time I didn't really see us.
You said the same thing about your mom and your dad.
Yeah. Well, that ties into psychology, right?
You found the same dynamic that your parents were.
I'll tie that in. And that is evidence-based. I mean, we know that what we know now is that individuals will gravitate towards someone who has both positive and negative attributes of their primary caregivers. So you tend to gravitate to what's familiar, not necessarily what you should gravitate towards, but what is familiar to you. Yeah. And so, you know, it was very, like, from the time that we met to the time that we got married, we were together a year. And so when my kids have asked me, like, their experience now is like, you and my dad are so different. And I've said to them, I was like, you know, at the time, like, I just don't think we took as much time to get to know each other, like truly know each other. It was at the end of the day, like, you know, it takes time to really understand.
Yeah.
And I would say that the demise of our relationship was our values being in misalignment, valuing different things and to different degrees.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not to say that my values are better or that his are worse or anything like that. It's just to say that, like, we value different things, and at the end of the day, that was where the relationship failed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was around just before that you decided to go into to help.
So we were together. I mean, we were married 10 years. Yeah. So it was a long time. And there were lots of challenges in between, lots of hardship, lots of struggle.
Did you go back into PR here in Austin?
So I think I did so many different things trying to find my footing. But when it came down to it, I didn't have any connections here. We didn't have any family. We had no support system. We came to Miami. Like, his family is from South America. My family's in Michigan.
Yeah.
We had no one.
You had
to develop.
Start everything
We had to
from
start
scratch.
everything from scratch.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a support system, it is so hard.
Yeah.
And at this point, like, I was spending a lot of time with my kids. I was stepping into that role of motherhood. And I started to get further and further away from what felt like an industry that was just so rapidly changing, and I was not keeping up.
Yeah.
And you think about like then social media. And I remember when I
Oh my
left
God.
Miami, like
Yeah.
then you see like Facebook and then the text, like then social media is emerging, right? And there's all these things. I remember like being a stay-at-home mom for periods, and I dabbled in different things, but it was like I could never decide between like, am I going to be all this? Am I going to be all stay-at-home or all? So we had support at different times, and I had some great caretakers, some great nannies that were like second moms to me. I needed that. Like I didn't have my mom right there. My family's in Michigan.
Yeah.
His family's in South America. So it was like we really just didn't, we had to build a community from the ground up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started to lose confidence in the area of like, could I ever get back to PR or advertising? Like it's been, 4 or 5 years at this point. And then, yeah, at one point I started a business. I worked in outside sales for a little bit. I dabbled in so many different things trying to find my footing and
Trying to find your way.
Yeah, and I felt like something for me was it was really difficult for me to feel like my contribution was being valued because I looked at it from like this idea of my value being attached to like bringing in an income and feeling like it wasn't. I don't know. That was hard for me, I think. I don't know why. Maybe from a place of fear, feeling like, one thing I learned from my mom, and I think that the intention and why she pushed this was definitely for her, I think, coming from a place of fear and what she'd experienced, where it was like, you gotta be able to stand on your own 2 feet always.
Independence.
Which, yeah, this hyper kind of independence, but that was also coming from like a fear-based place of like, okay, where is this? Where is this? What if this breaks down? What am I going to do? So there's always in the back of my head this feeling like if something breaks down, and I don't know, even if my marriage was healthier or looked healthier in different ways, then would I still have experienced that? I think so, to a degree, because that's how I experienced that reality. It was like, well,
that was what you got from your childhood.
That was what I took from my childhood.
Probably observing your mom and the way that she.
I think also just coming from a family where your parents do get divorced.
Yeah.
Like there's always a sense of feeling like, what if? What if though?
What if though?
What if you have to provide for yourself and your kids? What if something breaks down? What are you going to do? So there's always this sense of like, I have to have something.
And the universe kind of gave you that, huh? When you got divorced, you had to provide for yourself and the kids.
Yeah, and I had a lot of help. We definitely had arrangements that helped me get through school and provided for me and I'm super grateful for that. I'm sure that there's ways we both would have liked that to look different, but I was able to get through school. At times, there was times I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I remember just feeling like the one thing that I would say with my personality is like, it was just grit. It was sort of like, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. You said grit.
Yeah. It was just like, there is an aspect of my personality that maybe to a degree that might not even be fully healthy. It's like, I'm not going to let myself think of the negative out. I'm just going to figure out how to make this happen no matter what.
You don't think that's healthy?
I think it is. It can be healthy.
What is it?
But
not being, what would that be? What would be the healthy side of that? Be balanced with your expectations of what you can do or something?
That are realistic. And
not pushing yourself so hard or something?
That's how I would relate to it. It's sort of just not pushing, okay, doing whatever it takes and kind of throwing myself into this state of overwork.
Yeah, instead of like self-care, self-compassion, like really letting yourself rest.
Yeah.
Giving yourself a manageable goal or giving yourself time to get to a goal as opposed to doing it all now or rushing.
I don't think I ever learned how to be still as a kid.
You didn't?
No, I don't think I ever really it took me time. And even as that was something that became very clear to me when I stopped relying, maybe there's some avoidance with, as a kid, like you're turning towards these substances and things. I think there's a lot there that people turn to these maladaptive coping strategies to,
Yeah.
instead of like sitting with the emotions.
Being
And
still.
once I had to really sit with my emotions, I found that so difficult.
Me too.
I found it so difficult.
That's when I just released the Mamata Misra, who is the teacher of mindfulness-based stress reduction, the John Kabat-Zinn thing. And a big part of that is like being with your emotions.
Right. Yeah.
I've spent so much of my life distracting myself from my emotions, running away, whether it was through substances or maybe throwing myself into, I don't know. It just seems like I was never, like you said, never slowing down,
Right.
never being still enough to look inward at like, what's going on?
Right.
Like, how do you feel about the world? How do you feel about your place in the world? How do you feel?
Yeah.
It's hard to change and grow if you're not responding to emotions. Are there to help you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have to get the messages and the lessons from them in order to then be changed by them.
Well, I think something that I learned was that how did I cope with emotions? And one way that I coped with emotions was through just overcompensating,
Working harder.
working harder.
Just going to work harder.
Yeah. But I do, being in a profession where you really have to be self-regulated. You have to regulate yourself and make sure that you're, there's this constant thing of like checking in with myself and being like, okay, am I in a good place to where I can be there for my clients, to where I can.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where jujitsu and having jujitsu and having a workout routine. I lift a lot of weights, like doing those things, like those are my forms of self-care. And they can look, and sometimes it's like today it was recognizing that the thing that I need isn't going to be fast paced. It's going to be, how do I get my nervous system to slow down?
Yeah.
I think there's this idea of like, I had to learn this as a parent because with boys, they're so high energy. Everybody kept saying, I was like, why can't I get them to go to bed at night? Like, why? And everybody was like, oh, you just got to wear them out even more. I was dysregulating their nervous systems because I was expecting too much. And what we really needed, and this took me having, I had one of the best things I ever did for my family, with her dad, was bringing in like an occupational therapist and having her look at the ways, being a parent that has like a high degree of distractibility. I was completely overwhelmed at times. I was completely shut down where I was losing track of things. I mean, this has been something anyone that knows me will say, like,
inattentive. That's that inattentive part. Yeah.
Has been something I struggled with. Time management, struggled with my whole life. Still struggle with it to this day, but I've learned structures and systems to help keep things in place. And having someone come in and be able to look at my household and say like, okay, this is what she worked with all of us. She worked with me on like some of my sensory processing issues and finding ways that I was like getting overwhelmed, or being able to help both of my sons, seeing them sort of individually and what they individually needed. We played a lot of games. We just sat down and played a lot of games. That was something I don't remember. I think I did that with my siblings, but I never remember like sitting. Something I still need to do more with my kids is like just sit down, like
play games, just spend time.
Just slow, things that were slow, that wasn't like, because it was easy for me to take them to the park and let them run around, and I would be doing all those active things with them, but slowing down and doing the things that are down regulating was very difficult for me.
And that's really important. I think about it like teaching babies how to sleep, kids how to sleep. Right. A part of that is, them developing the skill of self-soothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that they benefit from having support to do it. That like down regulating, but also a little bit of separation to do it too. There needs to be some ebb and flow between like, I'm here for you, but you kind of have to self-soothe, but I can be a soothing energy or a soothing kind of presence, and then kind of backpedal a little bit and be a soothing presence 10 feet away, and then maybe a soothing presence 15 feet away.
Yes. I mean, I think the thing that I've worked so hard, and it's the thing that I most want to cultivate in my home, is having home be this place of peace, where it's not this place of doing, and just being able to sit and relax with them and be able to do something like going on it. We hike a lot together. We go on a lot of walks. That's probably some of the times when I get the most out of them, because we're doing something active, but it's also like we're hiking, we're on a trail together, and there's no escaping. Like, we're here together. You're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
So
we're here together in nature. I think nature's medicine, movement's medicine. It's also something that's great to impart on your kiddos, a love of nature.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially in a world where we're so frequently drawn to the digital or the virtual.
It's so important. So we're lucky. We're here in Austin with, we have a lot of sun, a lot of nature around us. So
yeah. Did you use those notes? You got like notes on notes in there. It was
interesting.
Did it make you feel better having them?
I think it made me feel better to prepare, to like organize my ideas. I think it's one of those things that's like, how do you prepare for something that you're not sure what's going to come up? I tried to just think about what questions might be asked of me. And it was interesting because I went back to, I was going through because I had written some papers on narcissism in college. So it was nice to like, I had papers printed out that were already there. So I was like, oh, I can pull from this. And it was nice to like go back and read some of the things that I had explored in my graduate studies.
Would you share those papers with people if they wanted to know?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
I was just going to tell the camera there, if y'all want to know, if you want to read Jamie's writings, or the essays, what would you call them?
No, so this was like peer-reviewed studies that I had printed out.
Yeah, dude, if y'all want to check out these peer-reviewed studies on narcissism personality disorder that Jamie wrote, hit us up.
I didn't write them. These are like peer-reviewed studies that I used to do the research for
your writing.
I did write a paper on it, and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the paper that I wrote, but
don't ask us for that. We can't find that.
I gotta find it.
We can't find it.
I had it like
Jamie might be able to find it, but
I might be able to find it.
Yeah, just if you pressure us,
It was about the narcissism spectrum though, because that was something when I started to explore NPD I wasn't as familiar with the vulnerability aspect of narcissism.
Yeah, the other side of it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you felt like's been unsaid about your childhood and your life story? Something we missed? Some question that I didn't answer that you would have liked to have been asked?
I don't know. I mean, what I'll say is that I do think that one of the things that I've been able to connect with other people is that I've had some of the experience of like going through some of my own struggle. Like, everybody goes through their own personal struggles, but being able to have that relatability of and then seeing the other side. One of the things I love working with co-occurring disorders for that reason. And I tend to not be like black and white about any specific thing that helps someone get to the other side of addiction. But I really love working with that co-occurring aspect because I've been able to change my I definitely used alcohol as a coping scale.
Yeah.
From 15 all the way to 25, and maybe even, to some degree throughout my marriage in ways that I maybe wasn't acknowledging the extent of, just like in that increasing like low level agitation.
Yeah.
But now it's like I've been able to just kind of, through the process of kind of personal growth, reevaluate my relationship with alcohol to where I've worked out some of the things that were drawing me towards it through therapy, through going through my own therapy, and then realizing, okay, this isn't as much of a trigger for me. Like, I don't need to rely on this thing. And I think it's different for everyone.
Yeah.
certainly I've worked with people where they might never be able to take another sip of alcohol again, or choose insert drug of choice,
Yeah.
right? Like it might be that type of thing that they have to come to that acceptance of like, okay, you've done this a million times, and like we have to just come to terms with
Yeah.
maybe there's no,
Say bye-bye to that.
but I also think it's both and, right? Then I've also seen people kind of reshape their relationship with things that they used to turn to because they've done the inner work that allowed them to gain insight to what led them to those behaviors.
Think of Gabor Mate's stuff in the realm of hungry ghosts, and the way he talks about addiction, that it's a symptom of an underlying
for sure.
thing. And what I hear from you is that if you manage that underlying issue, that this thing is no longer, their relationship with alcohol or relationship to whatever the substance is changes, where it can be maybe recreational, or it can be this medicine that it really is. Like alcohol doesn't have to be a coping strategy. It can be just a celebratory act, or, you know, a one-off.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I have a very strong history of alcoholism in my family.
Yeah.
And for me, I never processed it well.
Yeah.
And I think the Huberman Lab does they have the alcohol, he has a podcast on alcohol, and I learned so much from that. I thought I knew a lot about it, but it was interesting because one of the ways in which he characterizes a dependence or someone who's at high risk for developing alcohol use disorder is the ability to kind of continue consuming without having any perceived negative side effects. So that person that looks like they can drink and drink and drink and drink, but it's not showing up.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, having very little and it going to extremes, blacking out, like losing your ability to, losing your prefrontal cortex right away. So both are risk factors. And I think for me, it was like that, identifying that, okay, I have all the precursors that if I continue down this path, this could look bad, So there's always that recognition. And so it's always in the back of my mind. And when I go through something really stressful, it's always in the back of my mind. Like, I'm not going to have that around. I don't feel drawn to it anyway.
Yeah.
But it became very clear to me. And I think about it when I went through my divorce. I was just like, I'm not going to have that be anything that is going to become something that I turn to. So that's when I turned to jujitsu.
Turn to the weights, turn to riding bikes or running, rock climbing, jujitsu, turn to something that's healthy, that is an investment in your body.
Yeah.
I believe in that.
So if I were going to leave with anything, it's really kind of that personal experience. My passion for jujitsu comes through a lot in therapy and I love it because what it did for me is we talk about the biopsychosocial perspective. Right?
Yes.
So you have the physiological response.
Yeah, the changes in your body that occurs through that investment in yourself and the practice.
Well, and not only that, but the actual physical connection, because jiu-jitsu
it's a hug. It's a bunch of hugging.
Like you're hugging. Yeah. So there's so much physical contact, and when
it's like strategic hugging.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So there's the physiological effects of like having that closeness, physical touch, which for me, why it was so helpful in my marriage is I wasn't having that. I no longer have this core relationship that's providing me with this level of intimacy. And now, and when you do jujitsu, it's such a cognitive process. It's like you're thinking 2-3 steps ahead. And so you have that physiological effect, which I would say you have to develop trust with your teammates. So it's kind of like this oxytocin.
That's the social part. You got the teammates, you got this community.
So you have the sense of community, but you have the physiological response of like building a bond, that oxytocin that comes from like having physical touch and building a bond of connection in that way. And then obviously like there's a lot of dopamine too. You have this motivation to excel or to it can be very addictive. For me, it was like, okay, I want to continue to do this thing. And there was so much motivation towards doing this thing. And then it became like a family affair. I mean, I put my kids in it first. I didn't even know what it was. And I was like, that looks so fun.
Well, it had a holistic benefit.
Yeah, there was, and for the reason why I introduced my kids to it was because I could see that they so desperately needed a physical outlet for all this boy energy, which is so discouraged in our educational institutions. Like,
Yeah.
it's so hard for boys. They're not meant to sit still and be in these spaces and have the sustained attention. And it's difficult for girls too in different ways.
Yeah.
But it's just not conducive to the need to just get out this energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I also needed something that I could bond with them in
Yeah.
a way that was like physical but healthy.
You found it in jiu-jitsu.
So I found it in jiu-jitsu. And what I say to people in the therapeutic process is like, look, for me, it was jiu-jitsu because it gave me the sense of connection, physical touch.
Mm-hmm.
It also helped me build this community, and it was challenging.
Yeah.
So it hits all these areas where, if you think, and there's also this motivation of like keeping yourself healthy so you can train.
So you can do it. Yeah.
So my lifestyle changed as a result of it because the people that I was hanging out with were not going out and drinking or partying.
Yeah.
Like, we wanted to train the next day. So I can't speak enough to
find your movement
find your
medicine.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Find whatever jiu-jitsu is for you.
Find whatever jiu-jitsu is for you, and see how having something that has all these benefits can impact your life.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
You're awesome. Can we play one game before we wrap up?
Sure.
I'm gonna go grab
It's your
something.
show.
We're co-creating it, Jamie.
Okay.
You can always say no.
I think it's a little late for no now. I'll just sit here with my anxious anticipation for what silly move am I going to have to perform next.
Let's see. We're gonna do one last fun, creative. Put your notes away. You won't need those notes for this. You won't need your notes.
All right.
We're going to do one fun, creative, just explore, but it's also exploring who you are, where you've been, where you're going, and through the realm of tarot cards.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
So first, we're going to pick from these archetype deck. Shuffle those up.
Okay.
This is the Wild Unknown archetype deck.
How do you shuffle around deck?
Good question. That's your first challenge.
Okay, let me see.
Oh my goodness. I have faith in you. I trust you. You could cut it a bunch. How you mix them up is your way. Look at you go. You're figuring it out. Right. You feel comfortable with that?
So.
Where's your card in there? Where is it? Is it in the top? Is it in the bottom? Is it in the middle?
Somewhere in the middle, I would think.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle. Find it.
Grab it?
Yeah, find it for me.
All right.
You have to find it. Yeah, you can hand it to me. You can keep it too. Oh my God. Okay.
Okay.
So hold that.
Do I look at it?
You can.
Okay.
There's no rules.
Okay.
Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to shuffle these. I need to find more abnormally shaped cards for folks. It's like kind of to make it awkward for them to shuffle. These are normal cards, so they'll be easier to shuffle. Oh, those are well unknown. Those are different. Here you go. This is the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, which is kind of like the classic tarot deck. A lot of folks know this as the iconic tarot.
Okay. Do I pick
Shuffle that a couple times and cut it. Put it in the order that you like, and then pick 3 cards from it. You could pick it from the top, the bottom, the middle, but they're your cards. All right. And then hand those to me. Okay. First, let's look at the kind of...
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
That one is the... What's it say?
The thread.
The thread. So think of this card, this archetype card, as the part of yourself that's getting the reading.
Okay.
Think of the whole reading through the lens of this.
Okay. I think I got it.
The thread is... What number is that?
What is L? in Roman
Is it
numerals?
like 20? I don't know. That's a good question. It's after X's. Oh, there it is.
It's LXX.
Oh, it's LXX? Okay, okay. LXX.
I don't know what the L is.
I don't know what it is either. We're all learning here. The thread. Okay. Okay. What do you see when you look at that card, that illustration? What does it show you?
There's a hand with something that to me resembles some sort of a sword.
Yeah?
And it's one of those I can't tell if I see the shape or the background around it. There's kind of a contrast that's almost like you're looking at an optical illusion.
Okay.
Like, which one should I pay more attention to?
Mm-hmm. Let me see.
So,
Which one do you want to pay more attention to?
I mean, what stands out to me the most is the shape of this sort of triangle thing, but
This
I'm
thing,
more
yeah.
captivated by what's around it.
There's this like upside down rainbow. This looks like a Rorschach test.
Yeah, I keep wanting to look and focus more on the clouds or whatever.
Well, what's in the clouds? What's up
I
with
don't
the
know if it's
clouds?
clouds or how do you describe it?
Yeah, good question.
Hmm.
The path, the vein, the circuit. Life is a tangle. So much happens simultaneously and circuitously, leaving us grappling for meaning and direction in a network of distractions. When we connect to the energy of the thread, however, we strike the deepest vein in the body. Our whole being responds to its tug. Meaning is pumped through our bloodstream. Our mind and spirits are lifted. We remember who we are and what we came into this world to do. Though this happens on the most profound level, it could be the simplest incident that activates the thread. A song, an image, a conversation heard in passing. No matter how confusing and multi-layered our modern lives become, if we are connected to the thread, we are free. Being tethered to it is the only anchor our heart requires. You may think you have to find the thread and pull it. Imagine, though, that it's already tied around you, waiting for you to follow it home.
Mm.
Recall a moment in your life when you felt fully alive. The thread is waiting for you, and the details of that memory. It's
Mm.
waiting for you amid the details of that memory. Ah, the thread is there in your passions and your excitements, in the places where you feel most alive.
Mhm.
It's informative.
Yeah,
The meaning within chaos. Hmm, I like that.
I like it. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Am I
What
supposed
does it
to?
mean to you?
I think it talks about being tethered to something. For me, I think that, like, when I thought of it, I think about, I don't know, my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no matter what's happening around me, like, I'm just tethered to this thing, this grounding.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's sort of what I was reflecting on.
Some relationship to God or
Hmm.
spirituality.
Yeah, yeah.
Some like higher purpose.
Higher purpose with respect to whatever that is for every individual. But
Yeah.
for me, yeah,
What it
like
is
for
for
me,
you.
yeah, what it is for
Yeah.
me is like my relationship with God and being tethered to that. Um, being able to, I think, see that no matter what happening around you, the chaos around you, just being tethered and grounded by that
Mm-hmm.
belief or,
I like it.
yeah.
This is a past card, a present card, and a future card.
Okay.
You pulled these in that order, past, present, future. And this is the past card.
Okay.
I wonder what it is.
I have no idea. Does
What is
it?
it? Let's see. It looks like a wands card, but how many wands are there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6 of Wands. Okay,
This is the
this
past, right?
this is
It's
your
interesting
past.
that she's on a horse.
Yeah, tell me about the card. What do you see?
Well, I don't know that I shared this, but I grew up showing horses. I grew up,
Really?
and that's something that it's interesting because that's something that I feel so disconnected from. That was such a huge part of my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up showing horses, being active on the quarter horse circuit from the time I was 9 all the way till I went to college when I was 16. So when I see that, I'm like, oh,
Your past.
it connects to my past.
Being on a horse. The number 6 in a numerology perspective, all these have symbology. The tarot is just rife with it. And one of those is numerology. Let me see. The number 6 is the number of caring, compassion, and community. It signifies a period of calm after the storm when you tend to everybody's needs or everyday needs, rest, and establish harmony in your immediate surroundings. And the cups the wands, we're in Wandsville. The wands it's a fire element suit. It's outwardly directed, it's active, it's linked with will, self-expression, and inspiration. It suggests expansion and personal power. Yeah. And the 6 of Wands in particular, the keywords are victory, success, recognition, and satisfaction. The 6 of Wands is the victory card.
Interesting.
You face challenges, won the fight, and deserve the accolades you receive. Success and good fortune are yours. The 6 of Wands promises a time of happiness and fulfillment. You've marshaled your energies during times of struggle and overcome obstacles. Now you're on top and can expect recognition and rewards. You feel good about yourself and your accomplishments. And sometimes this card can show recovery from a setback or from illness. Yeah.
So it's tied to the past, but this
the-
reading is a representation of the past.
Mm-hmm. This
recovery?
This
Yeah.
card, that's your past card.
Okay. Yeah.
So how does that feel? And think of the past as like everything before right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do we define as the past?
Well, the present moment is now.
Right.
The thing that we're sharing. This present moment. It's small slices. But everything that's before now, the past, is that. And it can go back as far as when you were on those quarter horses.
Right.
Or it can go back as far as when you navigated a divorce and overcame that and tried to find a career and found yourself embarking on a new education, educating yourself in psychology and therapy and helping people and coming to, I'm sure, a lot of small victories along that journey.
I mean, definitely when I think about like overcoming obstacles, for sure, because again, it was the path to getting to the place where I am now and becoming, working with people. That path there was a lot of struggle in between.
Yeah.
So for sure.
Yeah. Okay. You ready for number 2? This is present card.
Okay.
Your present card. I'll let you see it first. And let me know. What do you see?
Is this a coffin? What is this?
What does it say?
It just has, I guess it's a 4.
What are there cups, wands? Are there swords? Okay, it's a 4 of swords. Swords are that's a powerful suit, I think. Swords are air element, and they're related to the cutting weapon of intellect. It symbolizes rational thinking, logic, analysis, communication, and the power of the mind.
Oh, I love that.
Is the swords.
Yeah. Ooh, that's interesting.
And there's 4 of them?
Yep, there's 4.
What do you see on the card? What's going on there?
I mean, at first it was Like, is this person sleeping? Is she?
Yeah, are they
Yeah.
sleeping?
Are they? It almost looks like a coffin. I don't know if that's what it is,
Yeah.
but maybe not. Because it's not open. It's like there's laying on top of whatever this
There's someone laying down.
Yeah, they're laying down.
Could they be resting?
Yeah, sure. She has her hands, or I don't know if it's a female or a male, but her hands are kind of like in a prayer position.
Yeah. The Four of Swords symbolizes rest, recuperation, retreat, solitude, introspective, and recovery. The four symbolizes stability. It represents withdrawing and resting in order to get your bearings after a time of trouble. It shows a knight lying down, recuperating after an inner or outer battle.
Yeah.
Often this card means you've been through a period of difficulty and now feel the need for introspective and solitude. This is really, it works well with your past card.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it does speak to kind of where I am in the right now, in the here and now. It's definitely this period of rest, and maybe I'm sort of coming out of this phase which has looked more like introversion for me, more solitude, self-reflection, and I'm starting to get to a place where I'm feeling like that desire to move towards more social connection. But I'm still sort of in this place of introspection, solitude, navigating this space where it still feels really good to be alone.
Yeah, it says examining what you've experienced, trying to understand what it all means, so you can plan for your future. This is the calm after the storm card.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Sometimes it shows you're starting to recover after a physical illness or injury, which is so similar to the last one for the past. So it's almost like that.
What if everything up till now has felt like a storm?
Yeah. What if it has?
It has.
And now you're
saying that there's not periods of calm within a storm, but like, it still felt pretty stormy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not all bad or good.
It's not all bad or good. But now there's a period of solitude or reflection and introspection to figure out like what's next. I like that. That's a good one. Yeah. Huh. And your future card.
Ooh. Okay. The Hierophant.
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 Or Hierophant. Okay. That's one of the major arcana. What number is that? I think it's like
5.
Yeah. That's a good one. I like that one. What do you see on the card?
She looks like a queen.
A queen, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think of when you think of a queen?
What do I think of when I think of, I don't know, some like maybe the matriarch.
Matriarch?
Yeah.
As a leader.
Yeah. Leadership. Those maternal qualities, maybe.
You're fine. I'm just moving it around.
It's interesting too because there's 2 people at the bottom.
Yeah, I see them people. Keywords are spiritual, authority, leadership, tradition, and institutions. It's a figure of authority and power, like the emperor, but the Hierophant's power is of a spiritual nature. Shown as a religious leader, and some decks call him the Pope. Sometimes he's seated on a throne, dressed in a priestly raiment, crowned and holding a scepter. Goodness, I'm butchering these words. So it can indicate that you're trying to break away from religious influences or dictates. In a broad sense, this card can refer to any organized institution, religious or otherwise, that exerts authority over its followers. Let's see. The Hierophant says you choose to live according to the beliefs you share with a group or organization. It serves you in many ways. You derive security from knowing the rules and where you fit in. Aligning yourself with this group helps you achieve your goals. You might even be the leader. aspire to assume that position or have close relationship with the leader. Interesting.
That is interesting.
That's
I'm
an
not sure what
interesting
to
one.
make of that one.
Well, you won't know until you go into the future.
I'm
But it's something about leadership,
Yeah.
tradition.
Yeah, I could see that. It
Um,
kind of does play into some of the things that I have that I'm thinking of planning.
that you're
in the future.
building.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the future card. It might not make total sense right
Yeah.
now.
Is it supposed to?
Mm,
I don't think so, right?
No. What do you think about it?
I mean, definitely the leadership part speaks to me. It seems when I think about that, it's sort of this momentum towards starting something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know what that looks like yet, but
Look, yeah, you don't know.
momentum towards starting something new. And the leadership part of that being coming up with idea, implementing the idea, maybe building the supports that I need. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know.
I like it.
Yeah, I have lots of ideas. We'll see how I do on the execution.
I'm sure the execution will be wonderful. This has been a ton of fun, Jamie.
It's been
Yeah,
fun.
I
Yeah,
really
thank you
enjoyed
so
this.
much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Heck yeah. And I look forward to sharing other conversations about different modalities of healing as well as other kind of expressions, human expressions.
Yeah, I love
This is the first of many conversations we can have.
Oh.
Yeah. This has been Phil Phails with my guest, Jamie Figari. She's an LCSW and a holistic psychotherapist. We've been talking about Phil Phails at Narcissism and having a ton of fun.
Yeah, this was super fun. Thank you for pushing me out of my serious zone
Yeah.
that's comfortable, making me be silly.
Yeah, we were silly.
Yeah.
We were a little mystical here.
Mm-hmm.
Got into some creative interpretation. And we talked a lot about narcissism.
Yeah.
Next time, we'll have to figure out what we'll talk about next time.
So many things.
Yeah. We'll think about what you're excited about in the days after this, like what you're drawn to, what you're excited about, whether it's a healing modality or if it's a human expression or a disorder.
Yeah.
Because we follow that thread, right?
I have some ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I do have some ideas.
Can we conclude with a hug? I know you're a hugger.
Absolutely. I'm a hugger.
Push this way. Oop. Now push this way. Jamie?
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for listening.
That's it. You can wave to everybody. Bye.